3, 2, 1. And we're rolling. It's Saturday, March 28th, 2026. Recorded live from the English Valley's History Center. Here's Jackie.
Hi, my name is Jackie Geringer McDermott. We're going to start off with a few acquisitions this morning. We've had some real nice visitors in here this morning. Winston Claypool was in. Just having a lovely morning. But one of the things I wanted to start talking about is some of the acquisitions that we have recently. This is a souvenir, and I don't expect you to be able to read it all, and I'll show it next week too. It's a souvenir from when Libby Wade, what her name was Libby Claypool then, taught school in the Green Valley area in 1897 and 1898. It says Souvenir School District, Green Valley. Lib's great-great-granddaughter, Tammy Stainerson, donated this to the History Center, and the names of all the pupils are there. And some of the ones we're going to talk about today are Mary Wade, who later became Mary Regseger when she got married, and the Zilmer kids. Elvina Zilmer, who was married to Raymond Moffat, John Zilmer, who was Minnie Patterson Zilmer's first husband, Herman Zilmer, Mary Zilmer, who I believe is the same person as Marie Zilmer Yoder, that Lib is calling Mary Zilmer Yoder today. I think she, in later life, went by Marie. And then Lauren Moffat, who was Minnie Patterson Zilmer's second husband. So I just wanted to show you this, and I took pictures of it so we could show it so that if anybody from a distance wants to read it, they can. But it's one of the very wonderful things we have at the History Center and the kind of things we like you to donate. And then another thing that we've got, Larry McCarter brought this. It's the Iva Herdliska Scrapbook Collection, Volume 3. And on the inside, it says, the Iva Herdliska scrapbooks were shared with the English Valley's History Center by Iva's daughter, Ruby Herdliska Pope. They were also shared with the Iowa County Genealogy Society to have them printed. There are 3 books in this collection. The scrapbooks were copied by Dave Jackson, Bonnie and Scott Romine from the English Valley's History Center. Book 3 was indexed by Twyla Gerard and proofread by Lana James of the Genealogy Society. So we've got all 3. There's Alan Ackerman. We've got all 3 of these books on the bookshelf here in the front if you want to look at them. And I know I'm going to use them this year because there's a lot of clippings from the early 1950s that I want to talk about in that number 3. Now we're going to the diaries. This diary was written by Libby Wade. She was my dad's great aunt, and her full name was Mary Elizabeth Claypool Wade. She turned 76 years old in 1950. She lives in a little house on East Oak Street in North English, Iowa with her son, Russell. And here is a picture of Lib Wade, and she's on the left, and on the right is her sister-in-law, Minnie Claypool. That would be Winston's grandmother. They celebrate their birthdays together in a joint family dinner each year. October 16th, 1950, my 76th birthday. I'm fine except for my foot. Hurts a little more. Maybe the shoes I wore yesterday rubbed some of the bones that are misplaced. I'll be okay though. I have a lot of nice things to think about and work to do. It is another lovely day. I fried the chicken that Belva gave me, made jello salad, potato salad, cooked potatoes, had a real birthday dinner, and it was good. Belva Yoss is Lib's oldest married granddaughter, and she gave Lib a farm fresh chicken for her birthday. In the PM, Mary Regseger came. She went to town to get covering for her screen doors to keep out the cold. Mary Regseger was a neighbor who lived down the street. She was walking uptown to buy plastic covering for her windows as winter is approaching. Gladys Bell came to collect auxiliary dues, $1.25. I paid her. Gladys Bell is the fifth woman from the right in this picture. She was married to Clarence Bell. Gladys and Lib both belonged to the American Legion Auxiliary because they had family members in service. Someone is moving today into the rooms that Dennison's had in the Newberry house. I thought I saw 3 children over there. This house at 126 East Oak was where the upstairs rooms were rented out. The newly married Mr. and Mrs. Dial Dennison had just moved out as they had purchased a home, and someone else is moving in. Maud was here, received more cards from Ethel and Linda, and from Jaunty and Viola. Maud Claypool was married to Lib's nephew, Ray Claypool. Here's an older picture of her when I knew her. She was a neighbor and friend of Lib's. Ethel and her young daughter Linda were the wife and daughter of Max McCarter, a young man who was a truck driver for the trucking company that Lib's oldest son, Wayne Wade, owned. Ethel sometimes helps Lib with household chores that are too hard or dangerous for Lib now. Jaunty Claypool, that she received the card from, is Lib's nephew who lives in Brooklyn, Iowa, with his second wife, Viola Claypool, who was the mother of Arnold Tippie and his sisters. Stella and Mary Kennedy were here in the PM, and also Tracy.
Yeah.
Mary said Pearl will be here next week. Stella Wallace is the mother of Lib's daughter-in-law, Lena. Mary Kennedy and her husband Pearl had previously lived in North English but had moved to Cedar Rapids. They would later move to California. Tracy went to Missouri Saturday with John and Bertha. They took Betty home. They came home yesterday. Tracy Wallace was my great-grandmother. John Geringer was his son, her son, and his wife, Bertha Claypool Geringer, was the niece of Lib Wade's. They were my grandparents. John and Bertha Geringer are in the front center of this picture with 10 of their 11 boys in 1959. John and Bertha and his mother, Tracy Wallace, and his Aunt Betty Kelly went to Missouri, where Betty lives just over the Missouri line in Unionville, Missouri. The Geringer and Kelly families were from that county in Missouri, which is Putnam County. Betty had been visiting here in Iowa. John and Bertha missed the birthday party on last Sunday for Lib Wade and Minnie Claypool because they were gone to Missouri. John Francis was sent to Denver. John Francis Geringer was the 20-year-old son of John and Bertha Geringer. He was my dad and Lib's great-nephew. He has just joined the Air Force and has been sent to Denver for training. More cards tonight. Lib continues to receive birthday cards. Neva Cray was here a few minutes. Wilbur, Jean, and Bob Hanchett came and helped Russell move the range out. They took it to Mr. Kolosik. Neva Kolosik Cray was married to Wilbur Cray, who was a brother to Lib's son-in-law Richard Cray in Texas. Neva was later married to Lloyd Burdine and lived in a little green house on North Bowen Avenue when I was a child. Russell Wade is Lib's son, and she lives in his house with him. Russell has purchased a new electric Gibson range, and they are giving the old one to Neva's father, John Kolosik. The men who helped him move the range were Wilbur Cray and Jean, I'm not sure who Jean was, and Bob Hanchett.
Gene Hudson.
Yeah, some of them think Jane Hudson. I think that could be right. Bob Hanchett was the father of Linda, Gary, Ron, and John Hanchett. And here's a picture of Bob.
Staying out of trouble.
October 17th, 1950. Aunt Minnie's 82nd birthday. Another lovely, mild day. Minnie Claypool was not Lib's aunt. She was her sister-in-law, the widow of Lib's brother, Vernie Claypool. But everyone else called her Aunt Minnie, so Lib did too.
Which house?
I defrosted the refrigerator. We were expecting Mr. Grove to connect up the electric stove. I hope we get it done while the weather is nice. The kitchen looks sort of deserted with the big old range out.
On that.
I have lots to do.
I did. Dalmatian house, in other words.
Mr. Grove was Roy or A.B. Grove, who was an electrician from South English. He was the father of Garth Grove and Jack Grove. Mary R. was here this a.m., and also Mrs. Agnew came to see the stove. Mrs. Bolts was here for dinner. She brought cooked squirrel. I had hamburger patties. When Russell came, he said Grove had talked to him, and he couldn't come till Thursday morning. Squirrel would have been considered a very suitable meal by Lib and her family, as they often ate from the game that they were able to shoot or fish that they were able to catch, or fruits and vegetables that they could grow. Mary Regseger and Minnie Agnew and Lizzie Bolts were all neighbors. This is a picture of Minnie Agnew, who lived just across the street east of Lib. I defrosted the refrigerator this a.m. Should have been done sooner. Frida was in. I gave her some of Elsie's cake. She left over there Sunday before Elsie came. Frida Wade was married to Lib's grandson, Walter or Bud Wade, and they live around the corner with their two small children, Claudia and Jimmy. The Wades left the party on Sunday before Elsie Parker showed up from Iowa City with a fancy cake for Minnie and Lib's birthday party. Elsie Parker was the ex-wife of Lib's nephew, Jonathan or Jonty Claypool, and was Lib's neighbor in the country north of town when she was married to Jonty. Elsie Miller was here this p.m. We had a nice visit. Mary Zomer Yoder was here too. She also visited Mary Regseger and Minnie Zomer. Her home is in Daytonville. Her brother Herman died on August 25th in California. Burial was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where they used to live. His wife, Jessie, is living. Herman was 71 years old. He went to school when I taught at Green Valley. All of the people mentioned in this last paragraph were from the Green Valley area straight east of North English, about 5 miles, where Lib taught school when her name was Libby Claypool before she was married in April of 1900. And then afterwards, where she lived as a young farm wife with her husband, Albert Otis Wade. You might notice that Herman Zomer was 5 years younger than his teacher. Elsie Miller, who we show here in this picture with her husband, still lived out at Green Valley. And in this picture, Mary Zilmer Yoder was named by her great-granddaughter as Marie Zilmer Yoder. She lived at Daytonville, which is an area north of Wellman. In the picture is Marie Zilmer Yoder, her brother Herman Zilmer, who passed away on August 25th, 1950, and their sister, Alvina Zilmer Moffett, who was married to Raymond Moffett. And here's the picture of Herman Zilmer. And this is Minnie Patterson Zilmer, who was the widow of their brother, John Zilmer, and she lives across the street from Lib in 1950. Lloyd Bickford is very ill, nervous attack and heart trouble. Lloyd Bickford was a man from town that I have not been able to find a picture of. Mildred and Russell went to Williamsburg. She came in a minute to see the new stove. Thought it very nice. This picture is Mildred Reese, shown here in her later years. She was Russell's girlfriend. The temperature went to 89 degrees in Iowa City today, nearly as warm as any time this year. October 18th, 1950. Temperature still nice this morning. Will be another hot day. I cooked chicken for dinner. Russell is to go to CR this p.m. Some trick to that. It is a day's job, but the time he puts in after 6 he don't get paid for. Russell drives a truck and does labor at the nearby Home Lumber Company. Mary Ann stopped a while on her way to town. I sat on the porch a while. It is so nice and warm. Mary Newhouse is another neighbor, and she was walking to town for supplies. Hattie came home about 3 o'clock with Rosa Secor and Jenny Harper. I talked to Jenny later. She said Hattie stood the trip fine. Hattie Killian is Lib's neighbor and friend from over on Boland Avenue. She's been hospitalized for a hysterectomy, and she has cancer. Jenny Harper is Hattie's aunt from out of state, who has been in Iowa City, staying near the hospital to help care for Hattie. Jenny is in the back left of this picture, next to her husband, Clyde Harper. Rosa Secor was a neighbor from down on East Washington Street who drove the women home from Iowa City. Jenny came up and brought each of us an ice cream cone. Jenny Wade is Lib's daughter-in-law, the wife of son Wayne or Perky Wade. They live a block from Lib down on East Clark Street. I talked to Virginia Murphy on the porch. Her mother died recently, and her sister is coming to live. She had polio, is still, using modern-day language, handicapped. Virginia and Leroy Murphy are the neighbors who later owned the pool hall uptown, and later on than that, retired to South English. That's when I knew them. Reva Claypool has a baby girl over at Minnie's, born last night, I heard. Reva Gilchrist Claypool is shown here in her high school basketball picture. She's in the middle row, the second from the left. Reva was married to Leroy Claypool, who was the grandson of Lib's cousin John Tabor Claypool. Reva and Leroy had 2 girls, Nancy and Sally. And here's a picture of Leroy Claypool with Marilyn Van Fleet when he worked at Eldon's Food Market. Later in life, Reva's name was Reva Wyant when she was married to Arlen Wyant. Her little girl, born in October of 1950, was Sally Ann Claypool. Sally Claypool was born across the street from Lib at Minnie Zomer's Hutchaby House for expectant mothers. Sally Claypool married Lib's great-great-nephew, Rick Don't, and became the mother of Matthew Don't. Sally was a 1968 graduate of English Valley's High School, and her name was Sally Holbert when she passed away in 1992. Mrs. Elvin Holton died today, had a stroke a day or 2 ago, died at the Sigourney Hospital. Mary Delilah Smith Holton was married to J. Elvin Holton and was the mother of Byron, Wayne, Otis, Milford, Cecil, and Marvin Holton, Lita Agson, and Mamie Conaway. I took up some plants from the porch box this evening. Jenny told about how Lowell was feeling so queer when they were fixing corn cribs today, blacked out for a minute or 2. Lowell Churchill was the neighbor across the street, and he is in the center of this picture. October 19th, 1950. Weather is still nice. I was getting work done in the morning and Hattie came. She rode over with the Charles Morses. They were going to the farm. Jenny and Rosa were looking for Jenny's things to move into Mrs. Lockridge's, so she would have been alone. She feels pretty well, but must be careful. That incision looks awfully tender yet. She was here until 4 p.m. Charles and Neva Morse, shown in this picture, were the in-laws of Hattie Killian's nephew, Levon Bursler. They are shown in this picture with their grandsons, Gary Morse and Billy Morse. Hattie's aunt, Jenny Harper, is getting her things from Iowa City. She'd been staying up there when Hattie was in the hospital, and she's going to stay.
Yeah.
You okay? You all right?
I'm fine.
Okay. All right, let's go back. Jenny Harper's getting her things from Iowa City and is moving into Mrs. Addie Lockridge's rooms so that she will be near Hattie. Rosa Secor from down on East Washington Street does a lot of helpful driving for her friends. Mrs. Halls was in a while. Mary Ann stopped, and Mrs. Ed Pope was here. Mrs. Bolts was here later, and also Jenny and Frida and Jimmy. Stella was here. Mrs. Edith Halls was the neighbor, the mother of Leroy Murphy. Mrs. Ed or Mary Pope was the mother of Gladys Bell. I received more cards today. One was from Bessie. She said Everett is far from well, but gets out, even drives the car. The other card was from Blanche and Henry. Bessie Curl, who lives in southern Texas, is Lib's sister-in-law, youngest sister of Lib's husband, Bert Wade. Her husband, Everett Curl, was badly injured in a car wreck and is recuperating. Henry and Blanche Milo also sent a card. Blanche is Lib's niece by marriage, as she was the daughter of Bert Wade's sister, Martha Wade Miller. The Milos lived at McCallsburg, Iowa. Lib's diary today also reported the Sid's death of Darrell John McAllister, who was the older brother of my listener, Marvel Axmere. Lib said the baby's mother's maiden name was Johnson, a relative of the Singletons. Mrs. Holton's funeral is to be tomorrow at 2 at the Christian church here. Mr. Hotchkiss wanted to paint. Russell went after supper to get it. Russell opened up the lumber yard to go get the paint for Mr. Hotchkiss. No, Mr. Grove came to hook up the stove. I have to wait again. And that's the end of the diaries for today. The English Valleys History Center promotes the rich history of the communities within the river valleys of the North, Middle, and South English rivers. It encompasses an area roughly served by the English Valley School District, from Deep River to near Parnell, and from Watchir to Kinross. This also includes the communities of Millersburg, North English, Webster, and South English. Please send donations to the English Valleys History Center, P.O. Box 70, North English, Iowa 52316. You might have noticed I made a couple of mistakes last week in my program on the Werner Claypool family. Here is the family of Werner's grandson, Don Francis Claypool, and his wife, Ruth Moffett Claypool. In the back row, from left, Carolyn, Gary, and Suzanne. And in the front, Wanda and Debbie Claypool. And I also missed the picture. Well, we might have missed it again. Oh, I got it. This is Amy. She was the daughter of Ray and Maud Claypool. Her name was Amy Claypool Hervey, and she was the wife of Elroy Hervey. Now I'm going to show you some more acquisitions. Carolyn Elwood bought these 4 beautiful donations for the History Centers. 3 of them have pictures of the old school building that sat south of the elementary school gym and faced east. That school was built in 1896 and torn down in, we think, 1965. And here's another one with that same picture. And then there's a little cup with the same picture. And then this one is a souvenir of North English. I'm going to show you some pictures of these because you can actually see them better in the pictures than you can when I'm holding them up. The old school, Carolyn attended that school when she started school at North English. When I was in kindergarten in 1960, I know they put the morning rural kindergarten children down for naps and quiet time in that building until the bus came for them at the close of the school days. And Dan Best remembers that we had lunch down there. I don't remember that. Here is the picture of that first dish. There's the second dish. There's the little cup. This piece here says on the bottom, Wheelock, made in Germany for the fair store, no English, Iowa, Weimar. And then this is the souvenir piece that says Souvenir of North English, Iowa. Bonnie Romine believes that this piece came from the Greenblatt store, which was the store that preceded the fair store. Another something interesting I found this week when I was researching, a distant cousin from Utah wanted me to work more on the lineage of my paternal great-grandma, Tracy Wallace, who was one of Lib's friends and neighbors. Tracy was born Tracy Kelly just over the line into Putnam County, Missouri. And her father, John Kelly, finished out his life just over the state line in Iowa. When I was looking at John Kelly's death certificate, it said the undertakers were Parker and Best from Cincinnati, Iowa. Knowing that our board member Dan Best has family in that area, I asked if the Best was his relation, and he said yes, it was his grandpa Lester Best, who was also in the furniture business. Lester Best's wife, Belva Best, lived in North English in her later years. On the Keokuk County Historical page, where I share my broadcast each week, Marilyn Cannon commented, "Very cool and interesting too, Jackie." That got me to thinking. I need to make a post and share it on Facebook about what my program is like. I know that the people in my family and friends circle watch because of the actual memories we have of growing up in or near North English, or being descended from those that did grow up here. But I also know I have an audience with friends like Tracy Popish from Belle Plaine and Linda Fritchen from Sigourney, who have no real ties to the English Valleys area. Linda Fritchen says, "I wish I had known some of those people." I especially love how Janie Miller can hardly wait for the next episode to see what happens, much like a weekly soap opera. I must admit, I think it is hilarious when people that I don't know walk up to me and start talking to me because they have seen me on TV. I think Lib's diaries stand alone as a glimpse of life in the 1950s in small-town Iowa, and I enjoy indexing them aloud by telling the last names of all the persons to whom she refers and digging up pictures to show each week. I also enjoy digging into the resources we now have at our fingertips, such as digitized local history books, Ancestry.com, and Find a Grave, and using digitized local newspapers to tell the story of our people. I love keeping everyone up to date on the activities at the English Valleys History Center, and the person that has gained the most from these broadcasts is me. Every week we are treated to new exciting acquisitions to the History Center, which we are enjoying and sharing. I love being with the alumni luncheon group that meets every few months in North English. I am learning so much more about my family. I am also excited to get to be at the front desk to greet the alumni and have them sign in at our annual alumni gathering for English Valley graduates at the English Valleys History Center coming up this July 25th after the parade. Like my school friend Mary Warner Coonert said, "I think you have found your niche, Jackie." Thank you all for making my 70-year-old life fun. My favorite project this year is the restoration and the rebirth of the Knoll Ridge Pool at the edge of North English. Here is a picture of the sandblasting that has started. The committee needs to raise $200,000 and they are halfway there. Please send donations for the pool to P.O. Box 114, North English, Iowa 52316. Correspondence. Mark Claypool from Sigourney said, Jackie, this week was so special. Great-granddad Claypool passed away at age 59. Not sure if anybody knows what happened to him, but it was such a young age in 1926. You really brought memories and tears this week. I appreciate you so much and thank you once again. Jackie Claypool Pruitt from Mountain Home, Arkansas said, Thank you, Jackie. I love that. I was surprised to see my picture pop up. I loved seeing pictures of my grandparents and mom and dad. Tina Claypool Milhoka from Colorado said, Love the new haircut, Jackie, and great to hear about our great-grandparents. Pam Kavanaugh Shield from Cedar Rapids said, Wonderful broadcast, Jackie. Interesting connections between so many of the North English families. Cute picture of Wanda and Carolyn Claypool. Wanda and I were in the same class. Joel Miller said, Glad to hear Dan got his package. Yes, we are excited to receive the home movies from your grandfather, Dr. L.A. Miller Sr., or Old Doc. They were showing them on the big screen when I arrived at the History Center. Your dad's cousin, Russ Bucher, was helping identify people in the films. It is our plans to loan them on the computer and to find ways to capture the individual images also. I heard from Larry Osweiler. He says, My great-grandmother was Minnie Claypool, a different Minnie. I have some pictures of Burnt and Minnie Claypool that I will try to send you. One is of their 50th wedding anniversary. Nice to see some pictures of my Aunt Lorraine Claypool. I remember my mom, Evelyn Claypool Osweiler, talking about visiting Lib and Perky, but I never met them. Thanks for writing, Larry. I plan to do a story on the other Claypool families in the North English area yet this summer. The program for tomorrow is at 2 p.m. at the History Center. It is Randy Feiselman with a discussion of her recent book, The Union First, Community and Commitment in the 1st Iowa Infantry. Hear about the first young men from Iowa to enlist in the Civil War, and some special live music from Band Joy, our own Bob and Christy Black, with banjo and guitar tunes. Join us Sunday, March 29th at 2 p.m. for a great program, refreshments, and treats. The next alumni luncheon group will be June 1st, 2026 at the Main Street Pub and Grub. Please contact Alice Stramer or Linda Carter for seating. We are also interested in learning about historical English Valley's items that you might wish to donate to the History Center. Please contact Dave Jackson, Scott Romine, or any board member to donate. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.